welcome to another astrological episode sponsored by Absolutely Psychic. Please take a moment to rate, comment, and subscribe. I remember looking at Jada Pinkett's chart after seeing her in the movie Set It Off. I was beyond fascinated with her powerful career aspects. Venus on the midheaven in grand trine to Saturn in the 7th and Mars in the 2nd indicates prominent success in the arts and a marriage to a record breaker in the arts. Venus is in its ruling position, Libra, and in aspect to the Aries point, which makes her visible to the world at large. Jupiter is also in its ruling position aspecting the ascendant. This is a very lucky placement. I know many charts with this aspect that constantly excel in financial matters. In fact, a close friend of mine constantly finds objects on sidewalks. This aspect is like having Lady Luck on one side. Also, Venus and Neptune, which rules film, are in aspect to Jupiter, giving her luck in film and beauty endeavors. She would be super successful in having her own cosmetic line, like singer Rihanna. There is no such thing as a bad chart. Every chart has advantages and disadvantages. The next positive aspect is Mercury, also in its ruling position, Virgo. Jada can get her point across with the support of the public. Typically, when planets are in ruling positions, life offers opportunities and abundance with less effort. Achievement is easier to manifest. The opposite holds true for individuals with planets in their fall or detriment positions, whereby hard work is required to achieve. In the case of planets being in their ruling positions, when in competition, those powerful positions receive support instantly, as the native's charisma and likability dominates the spectrum. Jada is a new moon Virgo, that's a sun-moon conjunction, with a Sagittarius ascendant. Her life mission is striving to understand the final results of everything that has been brought to her to where she and others are in the journey of life. Understanding human emotions and motivations will aid her in her own journey, especially as an actress. Her highest point of achievement is analyzing her philosophical ideals, spirituality, thoughts, feelings, and communication. This has a strong Jupiter theme, as the ruler of her midheaven is in the 9th house. For this chart to prosper, it will require ongoing expanding of the mind by becoming a perpetual student. The moon in Virgo is detail-oriented and will devote the majority of time to work. With so many powerful aspects, if a person cannot put in the hard work needed to excel, they will usually tend to marry well to a partner that will help them achieve. Since the sun is conjunct Pluto in the sign of Virgo on the midheaven, she will certainly meet and attain status through the support of powerful men in her career. When viewing Jada's most difficult aspect, communication, learning, and partnership skills are tested. Perhaps she was able to get by school based on her charisma. This certainly wasn't excelling in scholastic activities. Saturn square Mercury can inhibit confidence and require a person to work hard. Getting past insecurities is a milestone. Failure may be hard to accept, especially for a person with a stellium in Virgo. Rather than fail, the easier option may be avoidance. Wherever Saturn is in the chart, it denotes the area one has to work the hardest. In the 7th house, marriage and all partnerships will demand responsibility. Partners will become demanding, especially with this square, as Mercury communication with Saturn in aspect to it brings obstacles to communication skills, talking, listening, absorbing, and empathizing with the partner. Interestingly enough, Saturn is in the sign of Gemini, which will produce learning lessons around communication skills in relationships. More than likely, her biggest obstacle is in her marriage to Will Smith. Mercury is in a T-square aspect to Neptune, Jupiter, and Saturn, which can result in difficulties getting past rigid, idealized standards. The mindset is covered with rose-colored glasses to the point it may magnify matters and jump to conclusions without having much facts. Empathy skills, again, require time. The opposite end of a T-square is where most of the activity is executed from the T-square. Once again, communication shows up as having difficulties as it points to the third house, which is the communication area and one's mind. Two aspects that I'd like to point out are Mercury and the Moon quincunx Mars. This can easily become stressed and argumentative during the moment conflicts rises with partners. Partners may push irritating buttons. Virgo can get fussy and worrisome and make a mountain over a molehill, especially regarding the future. Since this is the signs of Virgo and Aquarius, there is worry about the big picture, which may lead to easily jumping to conclusions without having all the facts in order. Please take note, Jada has no planets in water signs. Typically, this has difficulty understanding feelings and emotions, their own and others, perhaps preferring to rationalize, which is an earth sign quality, or intellectualize, which is an air sign quality, or energize, which is a fire sign quality. Emotions and feelings, then truly feel them, is a major theme in this chart. This is the chart for major success in the entertainment industry. By no means does that dismiss Jada's talent. Rather, it clarifies that success, visibility, and attainment come easier for her. With the right application, talent can skyrocket. The true matter here lies before Saturn, requiring hard work, discipline, and time. When we examine Jada's progression, she has a few major aspects taking place. Currently, progressed Venus is on the ascendant, so love, beauty, and the arts are emphasized. This placement is for visibility and getting noticed. Now, the condition of the ascendant is more important than anything else because the way this ascendant is aspected has a strong impact on how this progression manifests. The natal ruler, Jupiter, on the ascendant can increase social awareness and publicity. Jupiter is also aspected to Neptune, which can bring artistic endeavors and secrets to the surface. Whenever a planet enters an angle, there is a change of course in the native's life. For over 20 years, progressed Venus was in her 12th house, making her more private. But also take note that progressed Mercury is also about to cross this placement. The problem here is that Mercury in Sagittarius is in its detriment position. Often the issue and struggle with Mercury in Sagittarius is outspokenness, speaking cantered without much facts collected, or putting one's foot in one's mouth. Since Mercury rules the 7th house, the partnership area, and the MC, there is much exaggerated publicity around her relationship with Will Smith that will be surfacing the media. This publicity will escalate and bring out extreme personal details on their relationships that can create a level of discomfort. Whenever Mercury crosses the ascendant, expect an enormous amount of communication, phone, email, etc. to increase. However, magnified by the condition of the natal ascendant denotes the style of communication that is going to be delivered. In the solar return, all her angles come back to the natal position it held at birth. Typically, this also happens at the age of 33. Depending on how far one has moved from one's birthplace, it can happen again between the ages of 50 and 51. This solar return happens to have Venus square Saturn opposite Uranus. There is an emphasis of surprises, shocking media exposure, fear, and hard work in damage control. The partnership seems a bit turbulent as the ruler of the solar return, Mercury, is in an exact quincunx to Neptune. This will also bring confusion in relationships as well as adjusting, adapting, and sacrificing. There is an emphasis on third house activity, which brings about more communication. In the next 2 to 3 years, when progressed Venus and progressed Mercury come to create an opposition to her Saturn in the 7th house, I question her ability to work her relationship out with Will Smith. Aspects to Saturn require responsibility and hard work. The true question would be if she had the desire to invest making such hard work and sacrifices required to make the relationship last. Without the hard work, it has very little chance of surviving. Will Smith is a Libra with Gemini rising and a Scorpio moon. The chart ruler, the purpose of the chart, Mercury in Gemini, is striving to communicate the effects and results of emotions, the sixth house, in the style of Libra, which is peace, diplomacy, and kindness. Saturn opposes these positions, which require navigating through many fears, worries, doubts, behind-the-scenes responsibilities, and balance. The emotional life is reactive, intense, controlling, and may jump to conclusions, especially with the moon in Scorpio. The highest point of achievement in this lifetime, the midheaven, is uniqueness and freedom in the sign of Aquarius. Freeing up is required. More specifically, emotional liberation will be tested. The Sun in Libra in this chart has the purpose to shine in enjoyment, children, creative forces, and balance in a way of emotional expression is released. On a side note, the many charts that I have examined, more than 60% of actors have a Venus-Saturn aspect or a Saturn-Neptune aspect or Venus and Neptune in aspect. Smith has this placement. When blending Smith's ascendant in Gemini, this can serve as a teaching force for children in a humanitarian way. Perhaps someday this will come to fruition. The moon in Scorpio has many themes around control, based on the aspects it makes to the other planets. But more specifically, the moon in Scorpio can be a very emotionally intense placement, and not every moon in Scorpio is going to respond the same based on the configurations it makes to the rest of the chart. Control backfires in this chart because Saturn is an aspect to it, requiring ongoing adapting, adjusting, compromising, and giving in, especially leaving him feeling uncomfortable. The moon and Saturn are also in fall positions in this chart. Take note also Jupiter is in a detriment position, and these positions often require to work for less than optimal results after hard work. However, Venus is in its ruling position, making Smith charismatic, charming, likable, and artistic. Planets in their rulership position typically manifest results much easier. When there is a combination of planets in detriment and planets in dignity, maintaining results is where the hard work is often required, and it's to the level of excruciating hard work that can become emotionally draining. Let's go into the declinations. There's a link below in the description section that goes into an article about declinations. As mentioned a few weeks ago, declinations often get overlooked, yet these aspects are formed by latitude instead of traditional longitude aspects. In Will's chart, Neptune parallels the midheaven. This brings about artistic and intuitive ability. This is very similar to having Neptune conjunct the midheaven. Work in the arts is confirmed. But more importantly, it can also generate an absent parental figure, and this is too confirmed by the father abandoning his family. Pluto contra-parallel the midheaven. This indicates that a parent will dominate the family, whereby rigid and highly controlled behavior is in place to maintain equilibrium. The moon in Scorpio can make the mother domineering. Since the moon has a conjunction to Neptune, I wonder if religion was used as a weapon. Ascendant contra-parallel the moon brings support from women and the public. The mother becomes the strong central figure for the native. Sometimes the mother becomes high maintenance, whereby she controls the native's life. Venus contra-parallels Mars. This can accentuate one's swag meter, as others will find the native irresistible. The sexual libido is intensified for natives with this element. When combined with the ruler, Venus being in its ruling position, this is further strengthened. But also take note that in the traditional longitude aspect, Venus and Mars are in an out of sign sextile, making this specific aspect even more important because there's a contraparallel. Let's use the 90-degree dial as an example. When we plot Smith's planets along the 90-degree dial, more details become visible. Planets on the Aries point are visible to the world at large. These points are 0 and 22.5 of cardinal, 15 of fixed, and 7.5 of mutable. Smith has a combination of Chiron, Uranus, Saturn, and the midheaven and the ascendant on these points. This has the potential to influence a revolution of healing from emotional wounds. More than likely, this will be offset by the birth of a grandchild. This seems to be relatively soon within the next year. Though the 90-degree dial is not needed to see these two aspects, Jupiter-Pluto conjunctions can attain success, charm, and sex appeal. These two planets together expand domination. Now, reverting back to the 90-degree dial, going into the Venus-Mars aspect that we discussed. The Venus-Mars midpoint is also on the Aries point, which only accentuates Smith's charisma and likability to the world at large. Venus-Mars in Will Smith's chart is imperative because it has three important themes taking place: a natal sextile, a contraparallel, and it's on the Aries point. There are many more aspects to be analyzed. However, to keep this brief, the biggest themes that jump out are the moon in Scorpio and the aspect it makes. Again, themes of control and domination are strong in this chart. Jupiter and Pluto, in aspect within each other, also amplify these themes. But the emotional, dramatic household Smith was raised in is demonstrated by Mars in the 4th square the ascendant. This can bring up a parent with severe anger and control issues. Undoing much of this emotional influence to reach liberation and healthy detachment is this Aquarius midheaven. Currently, the transiting Saturn traveling through that house will bring about learning lessons surrounding this to the forefront. Please remember that the planets in astrology impel, they do not compel. Planets are never the blame. They simply influence. Our free will, character evolution, education, and intent co-determine fate. As many know, during the Oscars, Chris Rock made a joke regarding Will Smith's wife, Jada Pinkett, regarding her hair. Smith went up onto the stage and smacked Rock in front of the whole world to see. And then he went back to his seat and blurted out a lot of profanity towards Rock. Minutes later, Smith won the Oscar for his role in the film King Richard. Transiting Saturn was squaring Will Smith's moon, and that transiting Saturn was going through the midheaven. Midheaven Saturn is often about learning lessons, hard work, possible recognition. At the same time, it will make one work harder, and sometimes the lessons may seem unfair. It can increase productivity, workflow, and most certainly bring issues with authority figures. But please take note that the recognition Saturn can bring in was visible as Smith already won a few prior awards to this same film weeks before the Oscars took place. There was the SAG Awards, and I believe there was another award ceremony where he was also the winner for the Actor of the Year or some other type of award. Regardless, the achievement of winning an Oscar is highlighted. Now, on a side note, the last time transiting Saturn was in this exact position was in 1992, when Smith's fame rose in the role of Where the Day Takes You and the 6 Degrees of Separation. The moon in astrology governs emotions. Saturn's transits to Smith's moon in Scorpio will bring learning lessons around detaching emotionally. Yet, I do want to take you back to Smith's natal relationship to the moon and Saturn, as these two natally have a difficult aspects. Usually, the rule of thumb is whenever a planetary pattern repeats itself, based on the nature of the natal relationship, determines how this event will unfold when it comes to a transit. The current transiting Saturn in the sign of Aquarius brings again learning lessons surrounding rationality, using words and ideas instead of emotions. Smith's natal moon in Scorpio is defined by a fall position to the moon, which may overreact to situations as intense feelings take over. There are severe learning lessons for Smith in working out his emotions and choosing his responses that seem fit. The moon in Scorpio has a strong gift for mindfulness and wisdom through attainment. There is another more intensive transit that impels the impact. Transiting Pluto is squaring Smith's natal Mercury and Venus, setting off a cardinal T-square with Saturn. Since transiting Pluto is going through the 9th house, there are issues surrounding legal matters and publicity. Often, Pluto can bring about matters from the past. Pluto aspects are skin deep. This is a huge wake-up call. It is the power of birth and rebirth and transformation. When contact with Mercury comes into play, it will transform the way a person communicates and the way they think. When it comes to contact with Venus, it will transform a person's affection, loving nature, and interpersonal skill. In a T-square, the empty house of the configuration is where most of this activity takes place. In Smith's chart, the 3rd house is where all this will play out. Again, that's communication, news, thinking, and speaking. Pluto also has additional overtones based on Smith's solar arc directions. Currently, Smith has solar arc Venus in square aspect to Pluto. Since these two are paired up by transit, this is a strong message regarding a change in the way people view him and changes to his work, since Venus rules the 6th house and the 12th house, the subconscious mind. Moving forward, these next few weeks, from April all the way till the end of May, will bring legal and disciplinary consequences for Smith as Pluto continues aspecting by transit and directions. Typically, solar arc directions work 6 months before and after they reach their exact peaks. Transiting Saturn also will form a quincunx to Smith's natal Pluto, resulting in possible changes, adjustments, losses, compromises, and consequences for his behavior. The consequences may seem severe, and this will certainly impact his ability to work. When we work with annual perfections, please check the description area for the link below. Smith's current age is 53. Since September 2021 through the present, he's been on a 6th house perfection year. That focus again will be from September 2021 through 2022. It's all about work and day-to-day routines. The natal ruler of the year for him is the 6th house. According to his 6th house, it's Venus and Pluto. Most would disagree with me and would use Mars instead of Pluto. However, when we compare this additional information to the transits and the solar arc directions, Venus-Pluto themes continue to repeat. When we examine the natal condition of these planets, we see the opposition from natal Saturn being highlighted. The public will have a change in view on how they perceive Smith, requiring Smith to go through some learning lessons surrounding his behavior. Annual perfections were used as a standalone technique in medieval astrology. However, with the evolution of astrology, I personally use them as add-on confirmation tools to the progressions, the directions, and the transits. Several astrological factors can determine love compatibility between two people. The inter-aspects one chart makes to another person's planets is the most important. Yet there's another tool that details the relationship, and that is the composite chart. Prior to embarking relationship analysis with anyone, it is crucial to examine the love potentials within each individual chart. Therefore, please refer back to Jada Pinkett Smith's chart and Will Smith's chart. The description below has the links to those videos. I briefly cover only the top 6 interaspects between Will and Jada, and each of these aspects deserves an entire video in itself, so therefore it will be a watered-down rendition. And for the sake of brevity, many other aspects are not covered, as this would become a very long video. Let's start first with Jada's planets around Will's chart. We'll first start off with declinations. These are latitude aspects that often get neglected, and there is a link in the description below to an article. Declinations are used to illuminate many hidden aspects. Jada's Pluto contra-parallels Will's Mercury. This can present a problem when it comes to listening to understand instead of listening to respond. Ideas are constantly opposed. Cross-examinations can become an interrogation. Contrarian ideologies will lose sight of the goal as further obstacles bloom. Communication conflicts usually lead to feeling drained, devalued, and unheard. Jada's Mars parallels Will's Moon. Wherever Mars is in another's planets, it energizes the nature of that planet. In this case, the moon has to do with emotions. Will's moon is in the 6th house of employment. The relationship can feel like a day-to-day chore. Sure, it has the passion of Mars. However, after a while, it becomes a routine like a tedious task. Arguments can easily flare up. On a side note, it is crucial that we factor in the condition that Will's moon is in, which is in a yod configuration, or more exactly, a boomerang. I will not cover that aspect, that configuration, in this video. However, it is important to note that the Mars coming from Jada's side will activate that boomerang. Jada's ascendant is opposite Will's ascendant and vice versa. This is the classic relationship aspect. The partner we want is reflected in our 7th house. The partner whose ascendant mirrors our 7th house projects our 7th house needs. It is this first thing that jumps out about their personality. Jada wants a mate that can communicate ideas and have a sense of a higher purpose, whereas Will wants an understanding mate that is fun and will provide him with a creative outlet. Often, this is considered an instant connection. Jada's Saturn conjuncts Will's ascendant. Some would view this as the worst aspect, yet every relationship needs Saturn for a relationship to hold up. Saturn will bring duty, responsibility, commitment, and will crystallize a relationship. Most lasting relationships have a strong Saturn conjunction. On a side note, we also need to factor in the condition Saturn is in Jada's chart, which is an immutable T-square. So it's not only Saturn that comes to Will's ascendant. The reason I chose Saturn is because it is exactly on Will's ascendant. Sure, Jupiter and Neptune from Jada's chart comes to Will's 6th house conjuncting the 7th. I am working with exact aspects, as those aspects are the ones that are instant. Now let's put Will's planets around Jada's chart. Will's Mars comes to square Jada's Neptune, Jupiter, Ascendant, Saturn T-square. This T-square needs full understanding on how it operates in Jada's chart. As prior stated, there are difficulties in getting past rigid idealized standards. The mindset is covered with rose-colored glasses to the point it may magnify matters and jump to conclusions without having all the facts. Empathy skills take a while to develop. Yet, the aspect Jada also lacks, planets in water signs, and typically that has a difficult time in understanding feelings and emotions, their own and others. Sometimes they prefer to rationalize, which is an earth sign action, intellectualize, air sign action, or energize, which is a fire sign action. Their own emotions, other people's feelings, and instead of having to feel them themselves, they would prefer having to resort to any of those 3 tactics. Jada has a natal moon in Virgo, so that means she will rationalize and analyze her feelings and the feelings of others instead of having to experience them. Yet when emotions run deep, getting to the core of the issue may be a problem, or since Neptune is involved in this T-square, it may become confusing. So when a planet from another person lands on any configuration, it will trigger it. Depending on the nature of that planet, it will determine the type of activation. Will's Mars lands on this T-square, further energizing and possibly aggravating it instantly. Therefore, arguments start easily. Someone may give in to the silent treatment or go to war. Destructive aggression is indicated. And though this would traditionally be a sexually passionate aspect, if Saturn weren't part of the equation, it would be an enjoyable combination. However, Saturn will remove that enjoyment. Heated disagreements and judgment regarding decisions and values come into. Since Will's Mars is in Virgo, he may get overly critical, picky, and detailed regarding the things he doesn't like instead of appreciating the things he does like. This can be a very confusing aspect because Neptune may obscure reality over idealism of what should be or what could be or what truly is. This is the searching for nirvana, which never comes to fruition. Will's Jupiter and Pluto comes to conjunct Jada's Sun and Midheaven. Jupiter-Pluto combinations are one of the most powerful combinations that exist. It's wealth and success. This relationship is what kept Jada's career going as Will brought in powerful clout along her way. This combination is beyond what people would refer to as life-altering. It is rebirth. And I would imagine it would have been a rebirth experience for Jada once she became involved with Will. Bear in mind, Jupiter-Pluto also comes in with control and domination issues. This relationship may have a lot of power struggles. Midpoint composite charts. Composite charts typically come in two formats. The most popular one is the one we're about to discuss, the midpoint composite chart. Yet there is another one, and that is the Davison composite chart. Though the Davison isn't used too frequently, repeated themes in the composite charts confirm each other and the interaspects. I have seen instances where composite charts provide detail that otherwise would have been neglected in examining the interaspects. Sometimes interaspects compatibility between two people appear just okay, yet the composite chart shows promise. In that case, it helps to provide more detail where the couple can improve their relationship. Yet I've seen the reverse, where the compatibility showed up as incredibly harmonious. However, the composite chart was extremely bland. The best part of the composite chart is timing. I have seen the composite charts indicate life-altering events such as pregnancy, divorce, and other significant impacts with on-point timing. In my opinion, I believe composite charts should only be used when there is an accurate time of birth for both parties. Before examining a composite chart, please refer to the love potentials within each chart as that is more significant, and then examine the interaspects. Those two things bear more weight than a composite chart, as the composite should be saved for last. Now, the midpoint composite chart. This composite chart is the most commonly used. It is calculated by averaging both charts by midpoints. The zodiac signs that fall into this chart need to be ignored because it is not a chart that exists in time and space. It is only used to see the house placements and the aspects. Some astrologers disagree on this. We look at the stellium in the 8th house. It indicates every facet of this couple's life is controlled. There may be conflicts with freedom versus rigid control. Fame can control their life. Advisors, such as other couples, lawyers, agents, family members, etc., may give their own unsolicited opinion, instructing or controlling what to wear, eat, speak, or share about themselves in the public eye. The 8th house transforms a person's life. It is death and rebirth, strong intimacy, emotional, financial, and career support the couple brings to each other. This is a strong placement for producing as other people's money is generated. Together they have produced a lot of ventures. This also brings several themes of who wears the pants in the relationship. Will and Jada each contribute controlling reins to the relationship too. Jada has a stellium of planets conjuncted by Pluto, in her chart, and Will has a Jupiter-Pluto conjunction in his chart, and I've seen that conjunction happen in various individuals every 12 years when that aspect reoccurs, and there are several controlling themes in their charts. There may be deeply rooted and unresolved psychological and addiction issues present in the relationship with such a loaded 8th house. Per Wikipedia.org, it's stated that Jada was a former drug dealer in her youth and that her mother was a heroin user with now over 3 decades of recovery in Narcotics Anonymous. Jada has Neptune and Jupiter conjunct the ascendant, which is highly addicted to escape, fantasy, illusion, sex, love, and more. Neptune on the ascendant is classic for these themes, and Jupiter enlarges the nature of any planet that it touches, including this one. So think of this as the largest Neptune conjunction to the ascendant as possible. Also, in Will's biography, he shared the violent physical abuse his mother endured growing up. These themes never go away without effort. This is why many undergo healing and recovery modalities such as astrology, New Age, 12-step programs, counseling, etc. Healing and recovery is a lifelong mission. And on a very positive note, the 8th house is about that type of transformation, as these two can assist each other in that reawakening process. Saturn squared the ascendant from the 3rd house, learning lessons and communication restrictions. Much of the information shared in this relationship may be under a tight lip. Yet there is a problem. It's a dichotomy. If we review Jada's chart, she has Sagittarius rising, which is outspoken. Will has Gemini rising, which is all about communication. More than likely, this pair may disagree on what, how, and to whom information needs to be divulged. Venus quincunx Saturn. Princess Diana had this aspect in her own natal chart, and this aspect shows up in this composite chart for the couple. This is pretty much about staying in the relationship for the status that it brings. There are obstacles with timing, stability, and durability. Often one may feel the financial pressure to stay in the relationship based on the assets. Freedom from tight responsibility becomes overwhelming. Some may disapprove of this relationship. The Davison composite chart. This second type of composite chart is not as popular as the midpoint composite chart. I like to use it because it exists in date, time, and space, and it averages the dates and comes up with a new date that reflects the relationship. If there is an age difference between the couple, the date may appear prior to one of the parties. As always, each natal chart needs to be analyzed to see the natal promise for relationships, and the interaspects need to be prioritized prior to reviewing any composite chart. This type of composite chart is for determining what is outside the relationship: children, relatives, finances, etc. The zodiac signs here can be used. The thing I personally like about this type of composite chart is that one can look at the out of bounds aspects, if there are any, and the declinations. There are links to articles in the description box below. This is a factor that is not available with the midpoint composite chart. Now, Jada and Will both have Venus in Libra natally. Each has a loving nature that revolves around tact, diplomacy, fairness, equality, harmony, and kindness. In the midpoint composite chart, the couple's Venus shows up to be in the sign of Libra. However, in the Davison chart, the couple's Venus shows up to be in Aries, which may show up as impatient, tactless, jumping to situations before thinking, and more importantly, self-vested interests. Each one may view the relationship as what's in it for me instead of us. Factor in Will's Venus is opposite Saturn, bringing discomfort and hard work when it comes to love. Also, the ruler of his natal 7th house has a yod or a boomerang with Saturn in Aries, which will bring some discomfort when it comes to relationships and fears around his love life. Saturn in Aries is all about learning, sharing. Briefly, I will cover only the top 4 Davison composite chart aspects for Will and Jada. Each one deserves a chapter in itself. These will be very watered down renditions for the sake of brevity so that this video is not longer than intended. Midpoint composite chart, we notice that 8th house stellium. Now take a look at the chart ruler in the Davison chart. It is in the 8th house, which once again highlights the previously mentioned 8th house themes. But more importantly, the Plutonian themes were surfaced. Pluto paralleling the midheaven in the Davison composite chart. This theme never goes away. This couple is labeled as the power couple, yet there's so much information that is twisted in the media. Power struggles and tight control impacts this relationship. This relationship can feel like an actual routine and monotonous. Mars conjunct Saturn conjunct the midheaven opposite Jupiter. This will generate deep ambitions, hard work, and heightened sexuality. Since this relationship is all about media and public image, there are issues connecting with each other harmoniously. This relationship takes time and hard work, as promised by Saturn. They will elevate each other career-wise and prioritize career over any other area of their life. This can be extremely difficult with timing, as Saturn is all about the clock. When one partner is busy, the other one is available, and vice versa. Interestingly enough, when we examine Jada's Mars, it is on Will's midheaven. I believe this theme is brought on more by Jada than Will. Saturn-Mars combinations can bring about a very committed relationship that may be fueled by all or nothing narrow-mindedness Scorpio, which here lies Jupiter opposite these three positions. Yet it will bring balance and opportunity to make it work. Career pursuits impact the amount of time spent with each other. Balance is the key to getting this to work, as the relationship by itself may be on one end of the spectrum and then swinging to the opposite end of the spectrum. Bickering and disagreeing are common in this relationship. Also, let's digest a little bit more the Saturn-Jupiter opposition in this chart. The Jupiter-Saturn opposition in this chart is a repeated theme that merits weight. This is why I recommend using both composite charts, as it's only visible in the Davison chart. This aspect is an emphasis because Jada has this aspect in her natal chart. When looking at either composite chart, repeated themes from a native's chart is a red flag. If the exact aspect is not present, note any repeated relationship between the planets in each chart or in the inter-aspects. If we look at Will's planets, he has a different aspect between Jupiter and Saturn. It's a quincunx. Technically speaking, it's in the configuration of a yod. Or, as my favorite astrologer, Joan McEvers, would say, it's a boomerang, as there are two other planets that come into this equation from the yod. In either case, in Will's chart, this yod is an obstacle, as all the planets are in fall or detriment positions. I can cover in a separate video configurations. Jupiter-Saturn combos have themes around balancing ambition versus enjoyment, business versus leisure, pessimism versus optimism. This relationship is a constant seesaw. One moment it may have the extreme optimism of Jupiter, and then the next moment have the extreme pessimism of Saturn. Oppositions are about integrating balance between the self and others. Themes around compromising, sharing, and peacekeeping are required. Since this falls in the 3rd, 9th house axes, I wonder how much of the cold, silent treatment exists in this relationship. One day they may speak, and other days they have no contact. So it would work along like this. I'm mad at you today. Today I hate you. Today I won't even know you exist. I will ignore you type of behavior. Yet the following day, it may be, you are the love of my life. You are the best thing that's happened to me. This is how extreme this opposition will become. Sun quincunx Jupiter. This can have issues with sexuality. These issues can come in the form of repetition, delays, and minimal results. The technical pairing may have difficulty with growth, literally or figuratively. By no means does this mean that there is a party that has erectile dysfunction. However, the potential is there because the Sun is in the 8th house, and it is further themed with Jupiter, Scorpio, which is a sexual sign, and it's retrograde, which means delays. There are themes around master-slave and domination that may become themes in their sex life, as well as fetishes, especially psychological fetishes. Mercury quincunx Jupiter has communication barriers in terms of being understood and valued. One may feel minimized or unheard. Agreeing, compromising, and negotiating are major obstacles requiring adjusting and adapting to each other. Currently, Uranus is on the midheaven of this chart by transit, and the media is having a field day regarding the couple. This continues for a while, especially with the upcoming eclipse at the end of April going on into May. So for the next 5 to 6 months, there is more media and press regarding the couple. Also, transiting Saturn is in the 7th house, which brings more hard work in the marriage. Yet, I think the one that may have more difficulty with this is Jada, only because she's born with Saturn in the 7th. There are many difficulties in this relationship where there are changes and adjustments to finances. However, there may be concerns over privacy, and a change in either the home may be required or in type of security system in the home, as an invasion of privacy is likely. I would caution this couple, in the event that they have any private video footage, to guard it, as there is potential for exposure. In summary, many repeated themes show up in Jada's chart, Will's chart, and the inter-aspects and both composite charts that indicate a significant communication barrier. These obstacles need reparation for a relationship to last. The worst thing one can do in a relationship is to give up communicating to prevent further heated disagreements. Relearning how to communicate with each other is the major step in improving this relationship. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.
What are the important questions in your life?
My boyfriend and I have been together for over a year. Do you see this leading to marriage?
I have 2 job offers. I need some advice on which one to take.
I'm tired of being lonely. I want to know if love is coming to me soon.
So if you have questions regarding a problem or need guidance, talk to one of our accurate, experienced psychics. Talk to Absolutely Psychic. Call 1-800-498-8777 or visit absolutelypsychic.com.
That psychic just amazed me. Immediately, she knew that I recently moved.
Wow, I was astonished. I don't know what else to say.
I never had a reading this good. This was absolutely amazing. I am so grateful I had a reading from her.
Call 1-800-498-8777 or visit absolutelypsychic.com and get your own private reading.
Thanks for watching. Click here to download our free apps for Android, iPhone, and Microsoft. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Stay tuned to our channel by hitting that red subscribe button. And remember, the first 3 minutes are free on our network with our trusted and accurate psychics. Be sure to surf our site for free horoscopes, articles, and so much more. Click here to go to our site or just call 1-800-498-8777 to get your first 3 minutes free right now.